Um, the very first time I flew alone, I was 16 years old, and I actually wasn't exactly by myself, because down in the cargo bay of this very, very large plane was a very, very large cage holding the family dog that I had been tasked with transporting. So quick rewind, I was born in Peru. When I was 5, we moved here to Canada. When I was 13, after being raised as a child here, kind of growing up bicultural, but mostly Canadian, my parents decided, let's move the kids back to Peru and then get them, reacquainted with their roots. 4 or 5 years, it'll be great. I had a great time, so I got to do all of high school there. 2 years before I'm done high school, my parents decided, you know what, we had enough. The kids have seen their roots. Let's go back. There was another job offer on the table, so they left, and I said, no, I'm having too much fun here. I've got all my friends here. I don't want to leave high school. What am I going to go into a high school in Peru with 2 years in Canada with 2 years left to go? So they said, okay, you can stay. You can stay with your grandmother. You can live with her, which is what I did. For the last year and a half of high school, I lived with my crazy grandmother, Mama Ketty, not to be confused with my nice grandmother, Mama Betty, who lives here and has the superior name, obviously. So I lived there, but in the hubbub of my parents kind of leaving Peru to return to Canada once more, they didn't quite know what to do with the dog. They were already moving like half a container of stuff to relocate to Canada. And so they thought to themselves, oh, wait, this is perfect. Gonzalo is going to come visit us during his summer break between junior and senior year of high school, which will be winter in Canada. So my summer break was spent in Canada in January and February. It was a great summer break. But they said, super, we'll leave ahead and we'll leave Duke, the dog, for Gonzalo to bring him back. What could go wrong? So, they bought a giant cage and they left it in my grandma's house, and they said, in a few months, this will be useful. So about a week before I'm supposed to catch my flight to visit my family in Canada, I went to the vet, because one thing they don't tell you is that when you're transporting a 120-pound Akita, you need to drug them. You need to drug them hard. So you go to the vet and you get, a couple of pills, really big pills, and the vet tells you, this is, you put it in a little piece of meat and you give it to the dog, you'll just swallow it right down, and it's fine. And I said, okay, how long does it take to start acting? Oh, like 2, 3, 5 minutes tops. Okay, and then what happens? Does it fall asleep? Yeah, mostly falls asleep. He's kind of drowsy, a little out of it, bit of a zombie dog. Okay, fair enough. And how long does it last? Because this was the big question for me. And the vet said, like 12 hours, which was perfect. He's gonna be out and drowsy for 12 hours, because that's the length of time of a flight, plus whatever time in between my flights, and then the second flight from Miami to Toronto. So it was Lima to Miami, Miami to Toronto. So I get the pills, and on the day of my flight, I pull up to Jorge Chavez International Airport in Lima, and I go to the little loading dock where you hand over your live animals, and right before I put Duke in the cage, I give him a little sausage with the pills, and I go, all right, buddy, bye-bye, and I close the cage, and I put it on the conveyor belt, and the attendants take it, and I see the little kind of plastic flaps close behind the cage. Perfect. And then I saunter over to the ticket counter. I've got all this paperwork. I'm transporting a dog. Thank you. Here's my ticket. And everything's going fine until the desk agent goes, oh. I say, what? Oh, you have a layover in Miami. I said, yeah. What's the problem? Well, the thing is that animals aren't like normal luggage where we transfer the luggage from one plane to the other for you. You're going to have to take the cage back in Miami, wait for whatever length your layover is, and then hand the cage to the next airline and the next plane. Oh, well, that's going to be tough. So I get on this plane and I just think, did my parents know this and not tell me? Or was this classic immigrant thing where they just didn't know and they assumed everything would be fine? So I'm sort of this 5-hour flight from Lima to Miami. I'm just kind of wondering, like, what the hell am I going to do when I land? Which I shouldn't have thought about because it happened anyway. I got off the plane, and I go, and I kind of didn't need to get my luggage, but I go to this unloading dock to pick up the cage. And the cage comes off the conveyor belt, plastic flaps are opening, and they take the cage off the conveyor belt, and I open the little mesh door, and in the cage, there is a puddle of what I think used to be a dog, and is now just drool and hair everywhere. And I'm kind of like, oh dear God. So I'm trying to wake him up because I'm gonna have to, have him around for 2 hours. So I kind of coax it, come on Duke, come on Duke. Slowly Duke kind of starts getting up, all 120 pounds of him, sort of shaking out of the cage, comes out, looks a bit like most of us, I guess, look after we've been drugged and put on a plane for 6 hours. And at this point, we're sort of in a big waiting area, in our lobby area. And the first thing Duke does after looking me right in the eyes is just pukes more puke than I have ever seen of every color of the rainbow. I have no idea what he ate, because I tried not to feed him anything, but he just puked everywhere. It was like a puddle, and the puddle just kept getting bigger, and airport staff are coming and trying, and I am 16 years old and useless. I was a useless young man. I have no idea what I'm doing to troubleshoot this situation. Thankfully, the airport staff are, no, don't worry about it, we'll clean it up. One of them says to me, you know what you should probably do, because it's going to be another long flight, is you should take him out to pee or something. And I think, yeah, that's cool. I'm in Miami International Airport. Where do you take a dog to pee? So I kind of get his leash, and I'm taking him around, sliding doors open. I can't actually leave the airport. And so I'm trying to find bushes. Now, what passes for bushes in Miami International Airport are these meter-wide concrete stubs that have a tiny little bit of grass that are maybe like 3 feet above the ground with a tiny little pathetic tree. So I'm sort of like helping a dog, a drugged dog, kind of climb up onto these stubs, and then waiting, and he doesn't like this particular tree and this particular going from one to the other to the other. Meanwhile, everyone's looking at what's going on. I look like I'm doing something terrible to a dog, and the dog's looking at me like, did you have any part of this? Because if you did, I don't know if we're going to survive this together. Finally, he does his thing, and I put him back in the cage. The cage was cleaned up, and I put him back in the cage. And I got on my flight from Miami to Toronto, and I thought about how I guess I had just become a man in some ways. And I got to Toronto, and the cage comes out, and Duke was fine. Duke was great, none the wiser, and I came out and saw my family and saw my parents. And they're like, oh, great, good flight. And my dad's like, did you have the mango lattes in Miami International Airport? I was like, yeah, Dad, I had the mango lattes, whatever the hell it is. No, I didn't, because I was doing, never mind. I think about that story a lot because, well, one, Duke was the best dog, and he actually traced the arc of my upbringing from when I was about 9 till almost the end of university. We had him for like 13 years. And I remember the day he passed away, my mom called me, and she told me what had happened. And I just stayed in bed the whole day, just thinking about my life. And I think about that story more and more because it was so emblematic of the experience of growing up an immigrant, or at least an immigrant with my parents. Because it's always been like that. Everything's always haphazard. Everything's done at the last minute. I feel like immigrants constantly do everything kind of inefficiently, or they do it in the hardest way possible. Maybe because they can't afford the easier way, or just don't even know what the easier way is. They don't know they're allowed to ask for it. And it was just, that was my childhood. That was why every time we traveled, instead of 1 suitcase or 2 suitcases like people, we've traveled with 3 oversized suitcases each, like drug dealers, and then negotiated with the front desk. That was like $50 extra per extra luggage. Okay, oh my God, it's 50-pound limit. We're at 72. Okay, we're gonna have to go buy another luggage and then fill it in. This was our entire life. Or it's why, when we were little, my parents decided, you know what, we're North American now. let's rent an RV and take the kids down to Florida. And we did, and that was cool, except on the way back in our RV, my parents decided, you know what would be cool? They should see New York City. So just for a second though, we had no time or money left to go into, like, really explore New York City. Let's just drive through Manhattan in rush hour on a Wednesday. So we're in an RV on Lexington Avenue, just driving down, and people are looking at us like, and we're looking out the window, it has blinds, like, oh, we're so sorry, just so that we could pull up in some abandoned parking lot on the southern tip to just look at the Statue of Liberty from 10 times farther away than is useful. Or it's why when I first went to university in Montreal, again, like, not a lot of money, my parents couldn't afford a huge extravagant kind of trip, but they said, you know what, we're gonna go with you to Montreal. We're gonna take the bus with you. And that way, we'll have all this excess luggage capacity so we can bring a bunch of stuff for your dorm. So I'm sitting in a bus from Toronto to Montreal, knowing that in the cargo bay of this bus is a toaster oven and a microwave inside of a carry-on luggage, and things that just are not necessary in university, but it's always just in case. And I feel like growing up as an immigrant, everything's about just in case and what if this happens, because you've traveled long distances and so you're a little bit paranoid. But that also makes you kind of really resilient and really resourceful, and it makes you really able to improvise, and especially, at least in Latino culture, it really helps you deal with massive amounts of public embarrassment. So much so that we have a word in Spanish for it, and the word is roche. And roche doesn't really have a translation, it's sort of a combined term. Roche is what you get when you combine embarrassment with drama. And I mean, drama, you know how sometimes like a 15-year-old girl will be like, drama? That version of drama plus embarrassment. So Latinos all the time, you'll find someone being like, from Peru at least, go, uy, que roche. Like, oh, like, that was mortifying, I can't believe that just happened to me. But the thing is that roche is not something you really ever think to avoid, because you just know it's gonna happen to you all the time. So instead of the way English people, I have heard a famous John Cleese saying that it is the dream of every Englishman to arrive at his grave unembarrassed. Latinos know that's never gonna happen, never gonna happen. You're probably poor, and even if you're not, you're just a mess of a person. So roche becomes very, very common, and you just kind of learn to live with it and learn to be resilient in the face of it. So I'll just leave you with that, because the first time I told this story was at a bar here in Toronto, and I brought my parents along, and they didn't know I was going to tell this story. And at the very end, I told them, I don't know if you know this, but tonight is the 25th anniversary of us arriving in Canada as immigrants. And so I had them stand up, and I had the whole bar sing to them, because I know they're very shy people, to just kind of pay forward the roche, so that they could kind of be a little bit embarrassed. But the other thing I did after that was done was I said to them, thanks, because after 25 years, if nothing else, the experience of growing up as an immigrant means that no matter what happens, I know what to do if I ever need to make a dog go pee at Miami International Airport. Thank you.